This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
I love it. I love it. Mikey, how you doing, baby?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. Can't complain. Although I think the Dolphin Nation's getting a little concerned with the Jalen Ramsey deal. So that's going to be quite a loss.
Yeah, that's something that I'm sure Jags fan up here are monitoring because they've been a little familiar with the uncertainty over whether Jalen Ramsey is going to be on the field on a certain game date. But yeah, I mean, if he's not able to play, that's a huge loss for the Dolphins and a huge help for the Jags.
Big time.
You know, especially for a young guy like Brian Thomas Jr., who's going to be playing in his first game, not having to deal with one of the best corners in the league, certainly should make his job a little easier.
By the way, tell me about Brian Thomas because all I'm hearing is rave reviews.
Yeah, he started off camp and he wasn't impressive at all. I mean, the first week or so, he had some ball security issues, had a couple of drops, just didn't really look comfortable. But as camp went on and then getting into the preseason, you started to see the talent emerge. You started to see, him grow more comfortable and more confident. And, he had the big catch against the Chiefs, and then he comes into joint practices with the Bucks, and he was just running by guys. I mean, that was the deal with him. He's got that 4.3 speed, can stretch the field, and the Bucks DBs, were really impressed with how consistently he was getting open and getting behind him. So, I mean, obviously not happy about it, but certainly impressed with the rookie. And, he followed that up with a couple of other good performances in the preseason games against Tampa Bay and Atlanta. And, now you just kind of wonder, is he going to be that 40, 50 catch guy as a rookie, or can it possibly be even more? And definitely, they're going to use him to stretch the field, no question.
Yeah, I mean, from everything I've read and everything else, he's definitely been a nice addition so far from the draft class. All right, so Mike, this happens a lot, and I'll give you a great example, dude. Tua gets drafted, and the coach that's here basically hates him, basically didn't want him,
Right.
and was doing everything against it. Because I know for a fact he was in the war room even on draft day. He was arguing with the front office about not drafting him. So environment is everything, and Austin Jackson turned himself into a nice player. He looked like he was a complete bust the first couple of years, but he didn't have coaching because the aforementioned Flores couldn't build an offensive staff. He didn't have an offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, quarterbacks coach. That part of his staff was always the weakest part of his staff, so his players suffered from that. In comes Mike McDaniel, who has been in the MVP conversation the last 2 years. Austin Jackson got himself a new contract. Kendall Lamb played better than he ever played ever. It's just like there's a whole bunch. Mostert scores 20 touchdowns. It's just over and over. It's proven that environment changes everything a lot of times for some players. And for me, Trevor Lawrence was going to be a baller. Okay. And whoever got him, I thought, okay, this kid's got the whole package, because I'm the guy that criticizes the quarterback that has to run in order to be an effective quarterback. He can't live from the pocket. I like the guy that can live from the pocket and use his legs. If he has to use his legs, fine, but he doesn't need his legs in order to be effective. To me, that's Trevor Lawrence. He's that. Mahomes can do that too. He can live in the pocket and run and all. I saw Trevor Lawrence in that sense, that he is the guy that's got the total package. Obviously, with Meyer, he didn't have the atmosphere that he needed.
Right.
So and he still hasn't turned that corner yet that I'm expecting, that I bet a lot of Jags fans were expecting. I don't know what your prediction was for him. You know what I mean? Right now, I know I look wrong right now, but I still have. I hope it's not this week against the Dolphins. Because I'm a lifelong Dolphin fan. Even though I've been in the media for 34 years, I've been here for 34 years, and I'm born and raised, in South Florida. So I always admit that I'm a hometown guy. But I think Trevor Lawrence has everything to be a stud, dude. So talk to me, brother. What's going on? What's happening?
Well, Last year, I thought, I mean, this is where I thought Trevor was going. I was writing a story. I wrote the story last year about, you know what, there's no reason Trevor Lawrence coming into 2023 after the year he had in 2022, that second half of the year, that he can't be a guy that could potentially throw for 5,000 yards. You know, and break the franchise record for passing yards in a season and break the franchise record for passing touchdowns in a season, which is 35 by Blake Bortles, by the way. You know, and if you look at his season in 2022, he struggled the first half, really turned it on in the second half. And then you go to 2023, and he really played well the first half of the season, the first 11 games. It may not have been eye-popping numbers, but if you take the second half of the season from week 12 of 2022 to week 12 of 2023, he was in the top 5 in the NFL in completion percentage. He was second in the, top 5 in passer rating. I think he was second in completion percentage. And the Jaguars were 14-4 over that stretch. The only quarterback in the NFL that had a better record over that stretch as a starter was Jalen Hurts. And he was playing at the elite level that they had expected him to play. Now, like I said, he wasn't throwing for 35 touchdowns in that stretch. He was 29-7, but still he was playing the football that they finally expected him to play. And then after that, that's when the injury started to mount. He had the ankle against Cincinnati, and then he ends up with the concussion against Baltimore, and then he rips up his shoulder against Tampa Bay, and he just wasn't the same guy. And you add in the fact that Christian Kirk was not playing those last 5-6 games. Zay Jones was beat up. Calvin Ridley was still not in the spots that he needed to be. And the guy trying to replace Christian Kirk was a rookie who didn't know where he was supposed to be half the time either. So it was all a mess. There are a lot of reasons why it tailed off at the end of last season. But the Jags saw that 14-4, 18-game stretch where he was playing football that was good enough to get them a division championship and a top seed in the AFC. So they feel like this year they addressed the biggest weakness on the offensive line. They added Brian Thomas Jr. They add Gabe Davis to replace Zay Jones. They feel like the rest of the offensive line is healthy. Trevor has put on about 10 pounds of muscle. So they feel like everything right now is in place for him to have that, what Doug Peterson called jump year. You know, third year in the offense. Doug Peterson said, hey, I learned when I was with Mike Holmgren, sometimes it takes a guy 3 or 4 years before they're fully confident in what they're doing offensively and as a quarterback before they take that leap. So they're expecting the jump. Now, will Trevor Lawrence ever be a top 5 quarterback on a consistent level? I don't know. I don't think anybody here knows that. But I know he can be a top 10 quarterback in the league. He was in 2022 by the end of the year, numbers-wise. But look, this franchise clearly believes in him. They've invested $275 million in him. So he's the guy, and they believe that he can take them to the playoffs. They can take them to an AFC title game, and he can take them to a Super Bowl.
Do they have a number 1 wide receiver on this team?
If we're saying number 1 in the true number 1 sense, like a Chase or a Justin Jefferson,
like any of the two guys, any of the 2 guys they're facing this week,
right? Yeah,
on Miami's side.
No, probably not. But Christian Kirk is their number 1 right now. He's the guy he trusts the most. When he was off the field last year because of his groin injury, that's when Trevor's struggles really started, because he only had one other guy that he could trust that was healthy, and that was Evan Ingram, who ended up catching 114 balls. Yeah. So from the true number 1 wide receiver, like the Justin Jefferson, no. But Christian Kirk is the guy he trusts the most. I would expect Christian Kirk to be the most targeted guy this year, just as he was in 2022 and 2023 before he got hurt.
I just think that that's one element that's missing in that offense for Trevor to actually be what he wants to be and what he should be. All great quarterbacks, dude. They've got a receiver that scares the crap out of people, and that's the only thing. I like the receiving core because Christian Kirk is as solid as they come. Devin Duvernay's got a ton of talent. The Brian Thomas kid has already shown, that he's got some skill set. So they've got guys. Gabe Davis obviously is a solid pro, but it's not, I think they need to make that investment, or maybe Brian Thomas becomes that kid maybe
That's what they thought when they drafted him. They drafted him with the thought that, okay, he's going to develop into that number one. Big kid, can really, really run.
Yeah.
You don't take the guy 23rd overall.
Right.
And not think that he's going to be a stud. And we'll see how it goes. But,
it's not fair now to do it to him. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Correct.
come on, man. He's a kid. He's just got to the league. But that's the one element that I think is got to really, develop to be fair to him, because then you're asking a quarterback to just carry everything at times. And it's just it's hard. So talk to me about the offensive line going into this game. Your thoughts on the Jags up front.
Well, the biggest weakness was the center, Luke Fortner. Last year, he was the 31st ranked pass blocking center in the league. I mean, it was awful. You've got a quarterback. Look, one of Trevor Lawrence's really overlooked strength is his ability to move in the pocket. He moves in the pocket very, very well.
Yeah.
Well, the offensive line didn't play great last year. It was 29th in the NFL in pass block win rate. So you're struggling already. You have the right tackle, who was a rookie, who was dealing with a shoulder injury all year. The right guard was hurt all year. The left guard, there were 3 guys playing left guard at some point. Cam Robinson was in at left tackle, then he was out, then he was hurt, and then it was a mess. Well, the problem you run into is if you're getting pressure as a quarterback from the edges, the way you avoid that is you step up. Well, when you can't step up because the center's right in your face, what are you supposed to do? You just get the crap beat out of you, and that's what happened. But the Jaguars added Mitch Morse, signed him away, or not away, but signed him after he was released by Buffalo. So that, to me, was probably of all the signings they made in the offseason and all the additions, that may end up being the most impactful. If he can just be – and he was really, really good in Buffalo. Even if he's just an average player now, that's a significant step up. And that's the thing about that offensive line. And you know it. You don't have to have the Eagles' offensive line to win in this league.
Oh, it would be nice, bro. It would be
It
nice.
would be nice.
Would
Absolutely.
be nice.
But if you're just an average NFL offensive line, you win a lot of games in this league. And that's what the Jags' goal has to be. They think Cam why am I blanking on his name at left tackle?
Cam Robinson?
Cam Robinson, yeah. Golly, we were just talking about him today. Cam Robinson, healthy. Ezra Cleveland, the left guard, healthy. Brandon Sheriff, at this point, the right guard, healthy. And Anton Harrison, who has really become the kind of run blocker that they wanted him to become. He's become a little bit of a road grader, a little bit of a nasty attitude guy on the edge. He's completely healthy this year. So they have a lot of faith in that offensive line. I have faith in Mitch Morse. I'm not sure and Anton Harrison, but the other 3, it just remains to be seen.
Yeah. And not that I take any joy in what you're talking about, but I kind of laugh at it because I'm laughing at Dolphin fans right now because the last 2 years, the offensive line has been injury riddled all over the place, and they think they're the only ones that suffer injuries. So now I'm kind of laughing hearing you talk about your offense. Did it not sound like you're talking about Miami? What the hell's the difference? Cam Robinson's in or out. Teron Armstead in or out. What's the difference, dude? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's the center injured last year. You got a backup center who then gets injured. And so your backup center's filling in injured. So we kind of went through it the last 2 years. By the end of the year, they've made the playoffs the last 2 years. And this is the funny part, right, Mike? I get Dolphin fans, they think the sky is falling. And I'm like, wait a minute, dude. I've been covering this thing for 34 years. And in the last 25, please tell me, when's the last time they had a chance to make the playoffs again this year for a 3rd year in a row? When was it that your quarterback was in the MVP race the last 2 years? The last 25 years, I'm sorry. What quarterback was that? You know what I'm saying? So I love how, the injuries, the injuries are all over the place. You just got to get lucky and be somewhat healthy by the end of the year. And that's something that Miami hasn't been. But it's funny how a lot of the same problems happen all over. But the few that get there get a break or two with the injuries, dude. They just
especially at the end of the year, like you said, and the quarterback's healthy and the quarterback is able to make some plays here and there.
Yeah.
But I mean, man, if you take the Dolphins, for example, they're dealing with all those offensive line injuries last year, like you talked about. But what if Tua is banged up? He's got a bad throwing shoulder. And then, oh, by the way, Tyreek Hill is not on the field and he doesn't play in the final 6 weeks. I mean, that's essentially what Trevor Lawrence was dealing with. Now, obviously, Tyreek is at another level, but still, he was his number one guy. That's what it is. And it's the teams. I firmly believe, and I've talked to people about this, and players will kind of poo-poo it or whatever, but I firmly believe that the teams that are the most successful are the ones that are able to manage and handle things when it all goes to hell. And if you can survive it when it all goes to hell, because it's going to in this league, regardless of how good you are, when it goes to hell, you have to manage it. And the teams that are consistently successful are the ones that can manage it when that happens.
Like the panicked Dolphin fan comes at me and I say, okay, wait a minute, dude. Tua threw for 4,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, maybe a little too much. He needs to throw a little less. But still, it's 4,600 yards, one of the best offenses out there. Your running back, Mostert, scored 20 touchdowns.
Yeah, on my fantasy team, I thank him.
Yeah, exactly. Mostert averaged 4.8 yards. Achane averaged 7.8. Jeff Wilson averaged 4.6. Chris Brooks, who's now with Green Bay, averaged 5.6. I'm sorry, you want to keep complaining about the line? Like, okay, they had a whole bunch of injuries, but they were still productive and they still found ways to get a lot of stuff done. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty creative the way they are. Now, do you want to be healthy at the end of the year? Of course, dude. Everybody does. But it's a monster you deal with. And what you just talked about, look at those numbers. And they had injuries all over that offensive line the entire season, dude.
Right.
By the time they got to the playoffs, they had one of their original linemen left.
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
That's not good. But they were still there and still had a chance. Look, once you get in, Bill Parcells used to tell you this all the time. Once you get into the tournament, anything can happen. I mean, look, the Giants won 2 Super Bowls because Eli got hot. They were not really good, great teams in the regular season. I think they barely had winning records the 2 years they won the Super Bowl. Eli got hot and the pass rush got hot, and boom, all of a sudden you got 2 Super Bowl titles.
So, how do you view the Dolphins from Jacksonville? What are you expecting from them?
High scoring, a lot of offense, just for all the reasons you talked about, and I can't imagine that there isn't a defensive coordinator the week before they're playing the Dolphins that just goes to sleep every night going, God, I don't know what the heck we're going to do. I mean, I just don't know. Like, he's going to run by us. Tyreek's going to run by us. And if we worry too much about that guy, Waddle's going to kill us. Right. I mean, it's just like there's nothing.
And then you got Mostert and Achane in the open field, and they just added Jonnu Smith, who is one of the 5 fastest tight ends east and maybe 3 fastest tight ends in the NFL right now.
The speed on that offense is crazy, and you forget about that. And if you don't have guys that can really run on defense, because they're going to get big plays. It's just the way it's going to be. If you don't have guys that can run on your defense, you're in trouble. You are really in trouble. Now, look, I think for this game, the Jags pass rush will be the determining factor. I know there is concern about the offensive line, but if the Jags can get some pressure on Tua quickly, because it has to be quickly because he does get the ball out quickly.
Yes.
But if they can get some pressure on him quickly, maybe that changes a lot of things. But if not, man, those guys are going to keep running. They'll be running on Sunday. They'll be running on Monday. They'll still be running on Tuesday.
Yeah. The Ramsey injury, and he's out, dude. He didn't practice yesterday and today.
Not going to play.
Come on, and they're playing the Bills on Thursday. You're a coach. You're like, okay, he's definitely not playing both games. So do we save him for the AFC East game, or do we use him now for the regular AFC game? I think you save him for the AFC East game because you try to, if he's not healthy enough to practice, why would you play him? Wait till he's
risk further injury.
Yeah, exactly. So he's out for this week. So your thoughts now without Ramsey out there, that starts to put, guys like Kader Kohu and Ethan Bonner out there. now. You know what I'm saying? And I thought Caterco, who, by the way, was on the rise 2 years ago. Last year he had a year back, but that was because of Fangio. Fangio just didn't get along with young players. He just didn't have any time for that, dude. It was really funny how he really had no time for that. But your thoughts, the Ramsey absence now, how do you view this matchup?
Oh, that's huge. But again, it goes back to what I said a little bit before. The offensive line has to play average, has to be better than it was last year. If they just, like I said, look, you don't have to give Trevor Lawrence and that offense 20 minutes back there to throw, but just keep the guys off of him long enough and keep the guys out of his face. You know, this is where Mitch Morse might make the biggest difference. Keep the guys out of his face. Then I think the Jags are going to have success offensively. Even with their issues last year, they still finished as a top 10 offense in yards. You know, they're going to be able to throw it around a little bit, and they're going to be able to score some points. I think this will be a pretty high-scoring game, to be honest with you. Something like a 31-24 type of thing right there, 31-30. But I do think the Jags, if that offensive line just plays a little bit better, will have a chance to score some points. Now, will it be enough? You know, if you let Tyreek Hill get behind you twice, then probably not.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you guys are getting that new stadium finally?
Yeah, it's what it looks like. Everything's all set. The Jags will be going to the owner, Shad Khan, will be going to the owners' meetings in October, where the stadium committee and finance committee will look at it, and you would think at this point they would give the approval, because you don't get to this point without keeping the NFL abreast of the deal or whatever. Yeah. But there's always a chance they could say no, but very, very slim. But once that's locked up, then yeah, they'll start construction after the 2025 season and should be ready to go for 2028.
I got to tell you something. I got to give Shad Khan a ton of credit, because I, like many others, said eventually that team is going to move. And that the owner is going to be, I got to go to a big city so I could go search. And he has done everything in his power to find a way to make it work there. And I commend him for that, dude, because he has really made every effort to keep the Jacksonville Jaguars there. That's pretty cool.
If you look into, if you take out basically splitting the cost of the $1.4 billion stadium out of it, so that's $700 million, whatever it is, right there. But take that out of the equation. He has spent more than $500 million of his own money on construction of this Miller Electric Center, their football facility, which is, I think, an exact copy of what the Dolphins have down there that I'm sitting in right now. He's helped. He put the giant scoreboards in. He put the pools in. I mean, he spent more than $500 million of his own money on a city-owned facility and other city-owned infrastructure around here to kind of help things get to the point where it was functional. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that had to happen here, and charitable donations too. I mean, he's put a lot of time, money, and effort into this community, and that's why the city knew they had to get this deal done. You can't lose an NFL franchise.
You're not going to get another tenant like that ever again.
No, not someone who's willing to commit to the community that much. So it's been, it's been the best thing that's ever happened to the franchise was him purchasing it, because you need deep pockets if you're a small market owner, and he hasn't.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. It's been impressive. Kudos to him. Follow him, ESPN DiRocco. Follow him on Twitter. Mike, as always, thank you for taking the time, my brother. Enjoy. You're coming down, right? I would imagine.
Absolutely. Right, wouldn't miss it.
All right. Enjoy the trip, my brother. And thank you, as always, for taking time for our show, man. I always appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks. And I'll see you this weekend.
Thank you, my friend. I'll see you. You be good out there. There you go. Mike DiRocco from ESPN. I've had him on this show since he was a Gators reporter back in the day, man. Really, 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 really good. Really, really good.
This is the Big O Show.